Hi everyone, welcome to my channel DevOps with Cloud. In this video, we'll be discussing mainly about continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. Okay, so this video is a continuation of my previous video, what exactly is DevOps and how DevOps has actually been evolved. So for beginners, if you have any doubts what DevOps is all about, so you can have a look at my previous video. So before that, let's see what is the today agenda. As I told, like we'll be clearly understanding what is CI, what is CD actually, and what are the tools that are there in the market that we use on regular basis that helps us to make this DevOps journey a bit easier. Okay, so yeah, before that. In the DevOps side, we have been listening, right, CI/CD on a daily basis. So let's understand what exactly CI and what exactly CD. Okay, so what is continuous integration? Okay, so to make it short, continuous integration is all about we frequently merge code that are being developed by the developers. That means like let's say the traditional way developers used to create source code, right? Like let's assume developer 1 and developer 2 are there and they create their own features. They might take around 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month of time in order for them to develop the features. And after that time, if they try to merge their particular feature of source code into the GitHub or any sort of SEM, then then if they try to build the source code, then there might be a number of bugs, right? So then it will be a nightmare again. So if you see here, uh, let's say there are three developers, okay, programmer 1, B, and C, and each are writing their own source of each are having their feature development branch going on, and after maybe a week or a month or so, and they try to merge it in the code base that has already been there. Okay, then if they try to build that code to any of the artifactory, then it will be a mess. Okay, so in order to get rid of that, the CI concept has actually been started. So as discussed earlier, CI is about frequently merging code changes done by the developers, right? So what that actually mean? Um, so in order, as we have already discussed right now with this example, so let's see, like rather than merging larger changes at once, we are bringing together lot of small changes continuously. So that is actually CI. So don't confuse, guys. CI is about we are trying to frequently merge the core changes that are being done by the developers. Okay, clear on that, right? So what actually CI does? So what is continuous integration, and what how can we how that actually been look like? So if you see CI, continuous integration is usually done with the help of a continuous integration server. Okay, in our case, let's assume like Jenkins is one of the continuous integration server. Okay, so every time if you see here, every time a developer commits the code, it goes to source code management, right? And from there it goes to the CI server. In our case, it's a Jenkins server. Jenkins is one of the continuous integration server. Okay, so the moment the developer commits the code, it goes to source code, and the Jenkins server will be capable enough of fetching the source code from there, and it tries to build the source code on a regular basis. Okay, not like the traditional way where the developer will be holding the code for a weeks or months and then it goes to the Jenkins server. It's not like that. When the developer commits a code, it should be on a daily basis. Okay, let's say in 1 hour or 2 hours time, I have done my feature development, and now I have committed my code to the GitHub. So Jenkins server will take the code, latest code, and build the source code, right? So what actually build means? Okay, if you see, build is nothing but it will be making your source code into an artifactory. That means into an output file where that file can be executable. Okay, see, Jenkins server will ideally do a build. Okay, when I say build can be, this can be using any other tools, Maven or Gradle also. Okay, once the build was generated, okay, now there will be a output, right? Let's say var files got generated. Okay, and these var files, they store it in a artifactory, and that artifactory might be Nexus or a JFrog artifactory Okay, so this source code goes this build goes and saves in the Nexus repository. Okay, so let's repeat again. Developer one or develop any of the developer commits a code on a regular basis, and this Jenkins server will try to fetch the latest code, and with some build automation tools like Maven or Gradle, it will convert the source code into an artifacts. Those artifacts will be storing somewhere, right? So that place we call, there are a couple of options like Nexus is one of the artifact and JFrog is one other artifact. Okay, so now we understand, right? So what's the advantage of doing this continuous integration when compared to the traditional way of building the source code? Okay, so now in this CA part, if you see, once the build was done, the source code was generated, right? Using all these facts. So this can be done using here also. So after that, there are unit tests. If you see here, unit test, for example, developer one has committed a code right now, and the build was generating, and the unit test got failed due to some compilation errors or something else. So Jenkins server will inform the developer one stating that, hey boss, your server, the latest code that you committed to the GitHub has some issues. That's the reason your unit test got failed. Can you please quickly fix this issue and rebuild your code again? So that's the phase that we are looking for. It should be an integration in the complete flow should be very it should be incorporated into itself. It should be very continuously changing there itself, rather than waiting for weeks or months time for the source code to convert into an artifact. Okay, so that's one of the great advantage. Like it can detect certain type of bugs very early. Okay, uh, let's see one more example. Like developer one has done a commit couple of hours back. Okay, and he committed the source code, remember, only couple of hours or one day or less in time. Okay, so and then he sent it to the Jenkins server. Okay, and this Jenkins server itself has triggered a build, and then unit test got failed, right? So now, as we know, Jenkins server will intimate the developer like this was the issue because of the latest commit. So as he has recently committed the code, he will be very aware what's the issue is, and he can try to fix it ASAP, rather than if he had committed the code 3 months back, he might not be knowing like what he actually been committed. So that's the biggest advantage of continuously integrating developer source code on a regular basis. Okay, so that's the biggest advantage of doing that. So the sooner these bugs, like any sort of bugs that might be compilation bugs or any sort of development bugs, the sooner these bugs are being detected, the faster and easier they can fix, the developer can fix the code. Okay, so that's a very high that's the complete understanding of CI. So as I'm repeating again, it's all about we are trying to frequently merge code changes done by the developers. Okay, so the other point here, if you see, the next thing is continuous delivery. Okay, so what is continuous delivery? So many people think like continuous delivery and continuous deployment are almost the same. Okay, if you ask any DevOps engineer, how are you following CI/CD? What CD means actually? Are you asking about continuous delivery or continuous deployment, right? So continuous delivery is all about continuously maintaining code in a deployable state. Okay, I'm repeating. Let me write it over here. Okay, continuously maintaining code in a deployable state. Okay, so what does it mean? Let me write what is continuous integration also, so that it will be easier. It's about frequently merging code changes done by the developers. Okay, code changes. And continuous delivery is all about continuously maintaining code in a deployable state. So what does that mean? Okay, so you have implemented continuous integration. Okay, and every time a developer commits a code, it converts a code into the artifactory, right? So let's assume like there are let me try to explain you. Okay, okay, so there is a version one. Let me take it here. Okay. Okay. Let's say there is a version 1, and there is a version 2 of code, source code, right? So, and let's assume there is version 3 also. Okay. And this version already you have done developer stage was completed. Okay. Testing stage was completed, and you have already deployed to non-prod also. Okay. And this development stage, and the same is the case with all this stuff, all the respect to servers also. In this also you have already created a, this version is also went into dev and test stages also. The same is the case with version 3 also. It has also done dev, test, and non-prod also. So now business came into picture. Okay. And told like, okay, let's keep all this version on hold for a while, and let's deploy this into production after a week or so, maybe a week or a 10 days or a month. Okay. So the ask is, we can deploy this version of code, version 1, into production maybe after 1 month of time from now. So let's work on version 2 and version 3. So that was the ask given by the business. Okay. So now after 1 month of time, the business came to the developer asking, hey, can you we want to deploy the code to production tomorrow morning. Okay. And if the developer says like, no, it's not possible at this point, there is something, we need to do something else in order to make the code ready for the deployment. So that's not the answer that business expects, right? So the code that is going to be production should be ready at any given point of time. Okay. So the thing that we have mentioned here is the it should have a continuously maintaining code into a deployable state. Okay. So excuse me, so yeah, so this should be ready to the deployment state. When anyone wants to try to deploy a particular version to the production, that state of build should be ready, and it should be like a single click, rather than asking developers to again commit the code, do the build, deploy to dev, test, and stage. The artifact should be ready, and it should be like a single click deployment to the production. Okay. So we have the privilege of deploying when we want to deploy into the production servers. Okay. So that's about continuous delivery. So what is continuous deployment then? Okay. As I previously told, many people confuse between continuous delivery and continuous deployment. So what exactly is continuous deployment? Continuous deployment is nothing but in integration. What we are doing actually, CI, we are frequently merging code changes by developers, right? So continuous deployment is all about, we try to frequently deploy small code changes to production. Okay. Frequently, excuse me for my typos. Okay. uh, small changes to production. So understand these three terms very clearly. Continuous integration is all about frequently merging code changes done by developers on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Okay. Continuous delivery is all about maintaining code that should be ready at any given point of time to be deployed to the production environment. Okay. And continuous deployment is all about, we are frequently deploying small code changes to production. Okay. What does it mean is, if you see companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and all, they deploy to production multiple times a day. Okay. If they want, they, because they had a very good robust CI/CD pipeline, where if they want to deploy to production like 1,000 times a day or 100 times or a number of times a day, they can do it because their CI/CD is very robust of doing that. For that, they might be using latest technologies like Kubernetes, Helm charts, and various other technologies that will make the DevOps engineer life easier. But that's other part of the picture. But they can deploy to production very rapidly and a number of times they want, right? So by this thing, there might be a question like how many times can we deploy and how frequently deployment should happen to production, right? So there is nothing there's nothing like the deployment to production should happen a week or on a daily basis or a month old or 2 months or quarter. There is nothing like that, okay? But the more you deploy, that's the good thing, right? We actually want our code to deploy on a regular basis rather than deploying it on a monthly and monthly or quarterly basis, okay? So, why exactly should we be using continuous delivery and continuous deployment? Uh, these are the best practices for achieving faster time to market. Okay, so why we need to do it in a faster time to market? Okay, so we want our products to deliver to the customers very frequently, right? So we want to give the end output rather quickly rather than waiting for a months and weeks and months of time. So in order we want to have them use our products like a week's time or in a couple of weeks or in a day's time, right? So that's the advantage of continuous integration, delivery and deployment. Okay, so continuous deployment is all about take some pieces of code, deploy to production on a regular basis. So that's a very simple definition. Okay, the more changes you deploy at once, I mean that will be that will be a riskier job. Okay, frequent deployments involve deploying only a small number of changes at a time. Okay, rather than having 100 features at a single deployment time. It's better we deploy those 100 features into maybe a number of deployments and push them to production on a regular basis rather than waiting for 100 number to grow. Okay, so that's the complete understanding of continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment. Okay, so let me reiterate one more time. So continuous integration is nothing but we are trying to merge core changes done by developers on a regular basis. Okay, continuous delivery is all about maintaining that code into a deployable state so that when we want to go to production, we no need to worry about rest of the stuff and we can directly deploy the source code to the production. I mean the artifact to the production. And continuous deployment is all about frequent deployments to production rather than having a number of features grown and then taking it to production. It's a best practice to deploy small changes to production on a regular basis. Okay, so I hope you understand the clear differences between all these terms, because these days if you go for any DevOps interview, the first thing they ask is are you implementing CI/CD, and are you doing CD or I mean are you using continuous delivery or continuous deployment? So we should be very clear on these two, as there is a only thin layer between these two terms. Okay, so now as we understand this thing, let's go to the understanding of this picture. Okay, yeah, I tried to make it as easy as possible, but this was not the only CI flow that is available. Okay, my company CI/CD flow differs with other your companies also, because it depends upon the technologies that we use and how frequently do we need our application to be going into the production. Okay, so let's understand now. So there will be developers in every organization, right? So these developers, what the main role is to write the source code, and after that they'll be committing into the source code management. Here, this might be GitHub or many other servers are this. GitLab is there, and Bitbucket is one of the source code management tools. So once they committed the code over there, Jenkins server will be able to fetch the code from there and it will try to build the artifacts. Okay, when we say build the source code into artifacts, for that we'll be using some tools for build automation. Those tools are can be like Maven, they can be Gradle, and previous we used to have Ant also. And for Angular, the code, the build automation tool differs. For Windows, it might be MS Build. So what tool are we using is a different picture, but what should be implemented is what the CI/CD talks about. Okay, So we used Maven, for example, and that Maven gives us an artifact of a .war files or jar files or EAR files, and those files get saved into a Nexus repository or a JFrog repository or any sort of a repository where you can store your artifacts. Okay, it's something like a, let's assume like drive where we keep our photos, files, and all, right. So a common place where you can store all your artifacts. So once the build was done, so it will be doing the unit test. Unit test is all about to see whether any compilation errors are there in the source code that has been committed by the developers. So once it is passed, and then the stage we go is like the testing ones. Instead of having a manual testing that's going on, we will be incorporating Selenium scripts or performance scripts. So they do all types of scripts that is available on the respective application. Okay, so once the scripts are done, then we'll be using these artifacts that already been stored, and we'll be deploying into the DevOps test environment. Okay, so the testers will be doing one more testing over here, and once the DevOps test is good, then it will be going to non-prod. Okay, and then this non-prod, it's not, see, understand one thing, it's not like we'll be only having one dev environment or one non-prod environment. It's not like that. I'm just keeping a box so that you'll be understanding how a CI/CD pipeline goes. You can have 5 UAT servers, six non-prod servers. That's up to the capability of your company. Okay, but once the code, the flow should, we should understand the flow very clearly. Okay, once the deployment was done to a DevOps test, then it goes to non-prod. If everything is good here, testers will be giving good to go, and from here they'll be moving into the respective production environment. Okay, so from here, uh, once the UAT was done and everything was done, right? So if you see, this part is called as continuous integration, where developers commit the code and this code goes to Jenkins server for a rest of the part. So continuously we are trying to integrate all the changes that have been done by the developers. So we are trying, after this integration was done, we are trying to deliver the artifact to the respective environments continuously. If I want to deploy to non-prod, I can deploy it right away rather than asking developer to commit the code, do the stuff and all. I can have my artifact, and I can use the same artifacts to be deployed into the respective environment. So we are trying to continuously deliver code that is in a deployable state. Okay. So what is this human doing here? Okay, if you understand the complete CI/CD pipeline, once your non-prod was done till here, this section is a production service. Okay, so for production servers, typically what, how the production cycle goes is, we will be having a certain date, so that we will be deploying into the production. Then the business, it's the business call whether to deploy to the production or not. So they can have a condition over here, like they want to deploy. If so, they can give the approval, and that approval they can deploy into the respective production servers. Okay, so this is majority of the companies do in this way, because they don't want to deploy any sort of code into the production servers directly, so that they will be keeping a human approval step here. Okay, so this is how a production deployment goes. If you see continuous deployment, let's assume like Google has created a feature right now, and uh, they created the feature, everything goes, there is no manual intervention, the bill goes to test, all automation scripts are done, the validations were done, and they can directly go into the production. Okay, so it is the very rapid scale, like all the they have 5 features assume, and instead of all the 5 features to be completion, and then they want to go to production, right? So instead of that, what they do is like, let the feature 1 be completed, let's go to production. Let the feature 2 be completed, let's go to production. So they're trying to make small code changes to production rather than having all the features being built. Okay, so this was a complete CI/CD pipeline that generally we use. So if you see, the builds differ. Okay, the tools that we use differ to every stage. Like for source code management, we can use GitHub, or as I told, Bitbucket and all. For Jenkins server, we can use for the continuous integration server, we can use Jenkins, or GitLab as a CI we can use, or Bamboo we can use. And for builds, we can use Maven or Gradle. And for next artifact storage, we can use Nexus or JFrog. And for automation scripts, we can use Selenium or various other tools. And for deployment, we can use, if you want to deploy it in a traditional way to web servers, I mean application servers, Tomcats and all, or the other way, if you want to deploy it in a containerizing your application, you can deploy it in a Docker using Kubernetes, using OpenShift, using Helm, using, we can integrate Terraform also here. So the tools and all are the secondary part. We need to understand how a source code goes into production. What are the stages that are available in between these two major stages? Okay, so in this, I think I tried to explain you as simple as possible what exactly is continuous integration is, and what a continuous delivery is, and what a continuous deployment is all about. Okay, so if you see here, yeah. So now if you see what are the tools that help us to make this DevOps journey a bit easier. In the previous video, I have explained you like DevOps is not about tools, right? DevOps is a culture between dev and operations team, and we will be also including DevOps tool so that our journey will be a bit easier. Okay, so let's understand what are the tools that are available in order to make our journey a bit easier, right? So I only took few of the tools, but there can be a number of tools, right? So for SCM, source code management, we there is some the famous tool that we majority of them uses GitHub. And for build, we'll be using Gradle or Maven. And for repo management, we can use JFrog or Artifactory or NuGets, anything like that. And for continuous integration, we can use Jenkins, Bamboo, and Azure. We can have Azure DevOps. We can use any of the tools. And for configuration part, we can use Ansible, Chef, Puppet, Terraform, and all. And for deployment, we can use Excel Deploy, Octopus, AWS, or Docker. If you want to have incorporate in Docker, you can use Docker accordingly. And you can use any other cloud servers, whether it might be AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, OpenShift. Tools are not our first criteria. Tools come into the flow. Tools depends upon the company budget, company technologies that they use, and the company level of security that they want. If myself, if I want to use a normal open source, I can use. But if I'm using, if my company is a banking company or a healthcare industry, I can't depend on the open source, right? I will be trusting some security mechanism where I can have some good, even though if it's open source also, I need to have some good trust on it. So tools differ from each and every company. So don't focus on the tools as of now. Initially, if you're a beginner, try to understand what a DevOps is, why actually DevOps came into picture, what's the need you are moving into DevOps, and what a CI is, what a CD is all about, and what are the various stages that are present when you want to send your code into the production environment. Okay, so that's the understanding of CI CD and all. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section below. And if there are any other topics you want me to discuss, you can add it as well, so that I will be adding in those to my backlogs. And uh, thanks for now. Subscribe to my channel so that you will be notifying when and when I publish any other videos regarding to DevOps and cloud technologies as well. So meet you in the next video. Till then, happy learning. Bye.